everyone. Welcome to another episode of the WIT podcast. It's an honor, a joy, a pleasure. It's fun to have my friend Brad Slater with us here today. And he's going to be kicking off our new series. If you've been listening, you know, we did a back to school series that was 4 episodes. We're kicking off a series that's all around career and career growth and best ways to be a great employee, how people make it from getting out of college or not even going to college and becoming successful. And the reason that's the topic for today is because so many of you, especially our listeners that are in your 20s, are reaching out for career advice and concern that it's taking too long to quote make it. And you're asking, how long should I stay in a job before I make a move? You're thinking, how do I ask for a promotion? All these different things. And I've heard Brad's journey of his career, and I love it. I love meeting somebody who also just hustled. I mean, that word's overused today, but he demonstrates the hustle of getting where he is today. And he's not going to beat around the bush. He's going to speak straight. So buckle up, listen, let's get started. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. It's awesome to be here. Such an honor. And yeah, I've been looking forward to this. I know it's been on the calendar for a couple of weeks, and I was like, when am I doing the Do It podcast? When is that? And so here we are. I'm excited, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, let's just kick it off with a day in the life of you. I think that'd be helpful to our listener and our viewer to tell where you work, how you spend your day, and then we're going to get back into the history of how you got to have this kind of day that you live.
Great. Well, the cool thing about that question, and it's something that I think is something that I'm thankful for every day, is that a day in the life for me is different every single day. I think the one constant is the most important thing is that I'm a husband and a dad. And so the one thing that doesn't change is that I get up, super early in the morning and get my kids up out of bed. They're 12. I have twin boys that are 12 years old, Brady and Jackson, and hustle to get them out of the house, and I drive them to school, which is probably my favorite part of the day because it's my time to spend with them. That being said, there's a lot going on outside of that, and I'm an agent in the talent business and entertainment industry. I work at a company called Endeavor. That's the umbrella company, but my agency is called WME, William Morris. I've been an agent there for 20 years. This is my 20th year. I think July 7th was my 20-year anniversary, which is just wild to think. And I spent a long time coming up before that. I graduated college in 1996. Most of the people, I'm sure everybody we're talking to right now wasn't even born yet, which is staggering. It really makes me feel old. But my job is representing talent. And when I speak of talent, that means that I work with people and represent the careers of actors and actresses and athletes, brands. And it's my job to really make sure that the people that I represent are taken care of professionally in the best possible ways with respect to whether it's movies and television shows that I get them, or endorsement deals, or aligning them with ventures. All of that type of stuff. It's my job kind of to oversee and move forward their entire business. So my day, some days could be solely focused in the movie and television world. Some days could be focused in the sports world. Some days could be focused in the brand world. And then some days can be focused on all of those things at one time. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was saying that every single day is different, which is such a cool thing, because I never feel like I'm, rinsing and repeat, right? Like going to work, coming home, going to sleep, waking up, doing the same thing the next day, which I know is something that's fearful to a lot of people out there. And this is a super diverse job that I've been able to carve, out for myself. And as I've told you before, I really started off in this business as an outcast in my early days. We can speak more to that, in this interview. But yeah, I mean, hopefully that's helpful. But that's it. I mean, it's filled with a lot of fun, obviously, and then a lot of intense things too. It's a ton of meetings, a ton of phone calls, a ton of emails, a ton of texts, but events, when necessary too, movie premieres, sporting events, dinners, a lot of business lunches, things like that. So yeah, extremely diverse and fun.
So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that you shared. Let's go back. Okay. Mm-hmm. Give me you're 16 years old. Okay. let's go back to Brad, 16-year-old Brad. Would he be surprised at what you're doing today?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, 16-year-old Brad would be surprised. 20-year-old Brad would probably be surprised. And if I'm being honest with you, so does 49-year-old Brad. I'm surprised every day. My wife and I laugh about it all the time. Not because it's like so super far-fetched, but and we'll discuss it, but it was a lot of work, to get here, and there's no guarantees in anything.
No.
So, but yes, starting with 16-year-old, I thought I was gonna be a baseball player forever.
Right.
Sarah, at 16 years old, that's all I really wanted to do. I didn't think for sure I was gonna be a major league baseball player, but I knew that if I worked hard, that there, maybe there was gonna be some opportunities to go, and play in college and then play beyond that. And knew that was gonna be a lot of hard work. And then things happen, and things don't pan out the way you might dream. But frankly, I think I might have gotten, I don't know if I got lucky, because I would have loved to have been playing in Dodger Stadium. But if this is second best, then I'm thrilled with it. So, you never know.
So that's important for you all that are thinking, like, when you're 16, you have these dreams and you have these goals, and sometimes they don't turn out how you think that you want it to turn out, but there's also something beautiful in things going a different way. And I do think it's important. I think there's a great connection between the discipline that you learned on the field playing baseball and the work that you're doing today. So I would think, can you share on that a little bit, like, for all of our athletes out there, our young athletes out there, like, just focused on that, like thinking how those things that they're learning on the field or in a team sport would eventually help them in the workforce?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, mindset is important in every aspect of life and how you attack things. And luckily, I think I was taught at a really early age about how to focus, try to focus mentally, and what a competitive spirit really meant. And I think I definitely found one job that I could use all of my competitive attributes that I had on the baseball field, behind my desk on the phones, because I care so deeply about the careers and that I get the opportunity to handle, the honor to handle, that I take it all so personally. And so every day is a game to me in terms of wins and losses. And I can't stand losing. I've never been able to take losing. I don't think I was a bad loser, but it's not a great feeling. We know winning feels a lot better. So in my head, if it's between my client and somebody else's for anything, I take it personally. I wear it on my sleeve. And so I'm really, really focused, and will do everything that I possibly can to have the best outcome. Sports, I think, was an amazing outlet growing up. I still love, sports to this day. Now, it's not so much baseball, but I took up, the mixed martial arts years ago with jujitsu, and Muay Thai. I can't recommend jujitsu enough for its parallels in life. I mean, I think the whole theme behind that is learning how to be comfortable when you're uncomfortable, which is such a valuable lesson. And I've worked so hard on that over the course of my career. There's so many things that are really hard to do, and it's so hard to take a first step so many times, but you realize that sometimes taking that first step is the easiest move, and then things can open up. So there's a ton of things from sports that translate into my day-to-day job. And yeah, I'm lucky for that. And I really think about that a lot.
So all the practices that you're going to, everybody, and the time that you're spending with your team, it's not wasted time to be doing that and spending your teen years participating on a team. I think, especially when I was working in the corporate world, I was a better team member because I had been a team member in sports teams, and I wanted us all to win. And like you said, very similarly, like that was a big focus for me, that I wanted our department to win. I didn't think of that there were tasks that I was beneath, because when you're working as a team, you are like, we're in it together. So for me, I definitely have seen those parallels of my days playing sports and then seeing the work that I get to do today. And I think it's good to be competitive. I think that people don't, like, it's a good quality to have, to want to win. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to. I get a no sometimes and I just turn it into a not yet, because I'm just like, no, that's we're going to turn that one around.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, when I was, one of my mentors coming up described himself early on, before I even became an agent. He said, he said he was a better coach than a player. And I thought that was so amazing. And that was something I held on to my whole career. And now I really consider myself a better coach than a player. I love being around, the younger people who are starting the journey in this business and talking to people like your audience here. And I love when they come and sit on my couch and ask me for help and tell me sometimes that they want to have a business that emulates mine, which is like the most flattering thing that I could hear, and that and then get to guide them on it. And as good as I could be day to day in terms of my my job, I love helping other people, and I get so much more satisfaction when I help somebody or help get a job for somebody else's client, not even my own. It's equally, if not more, gratifying. So teams are important. I know that as time has gone on in life, that everything feels like you're on an island and you got to do everything for yourself. But if you can navigate the waters and you don't have to have 20 people on your squad, but man, if you could have a tight 4 or 5 that that you can link arms with at any time, it's invaluable, and you're going to be so much better off for it. People that you can really rely on and really trust.
So since we have so many listeners that are in their early 20s, starting their careers, or they're in their first job and they're wondering if this is what I'm going to do, or they want to figure out how to move their way up the ladder, whatever that means for them. Let's go back to you in your 20s. We know 16, you thought you were going to play baseball. You graduate high school. You go to college. You don't go to college. Tell us your journey on that.
Yeah, I went to college. I went to University of Arizona. Big Arizona Wildcat guy, and I had an unbelievable experience within my first 2 weeks at school. We were all freshmen running around, and they were offering a free movie screening on campus one night midweek. And one of my best friends at the time, his name was Garrett Feldman, said, let's go see this movie. And the movie was called Last of the Mohicans. And it was directed by one of the great movie directors, a guy by the name of Michael Mann. And everybody should write that movie down and go check it out, because it holds up to this day. It is amazing. And I just thought it was so cool to get to go see a free anything, like, we didn't have any money. You're a freshman running around there. And we go onto campus to see the movie. I was completely mesmerized by everything on screen. I just thought it was astounding. And then I remember vividly taking like 5 steps out of theater, grabbing Garrett by the arm and going, listen, man, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I have to be in the movie business. That's what I'm going to do with my life. And, it made a little sense, only just because my second love outside of sports was movies and TV. If I wasn't, on a baseball field somewhere, I was in a movie theater or watching television, and so I was so just into that. Like, I knew I had to do it. But even though I was from Los Angeles, I didn't really have any immediate connections at all to the movie business whatsoever. My father was very tangentially, involved in the business, like more on the marketing side, but there was nobody that could pick up the phone and get me a job when I was leaving college at a talent agency in a mailroom or anything like that. That wasn't happening. I had no friends whose parents were involved, nobody's aunt and uncle, nothing. This was a different day. Even though it feels like it was yesterday, it was I graduated in 1996 from Arizona, like I said, and there was no internet, believe it or not. Nobody had cell phones, really. A couple kids had cell phones. There was no text messaging. So the reason I say that about the no internet is there's no real way to reach anybody. Like today, any of you, if you wanted, you could get my email and you could be in my inbox. And if you write something, persuasive enough or passionate enough, there's a very good chance I'm emailing you back. Back then, there was none of that. You had to write a letter, hope it was going to get in somebody's hands, or be nasty like I was. Everybody had a fax machine, and somehow I try to find out people's fax numbers, personal fax numbers at their homes, because they would check their fax machines at night, like the way we all check our cell phones before you go to bed. And that's how I was able to get on the radars of some people. I got a couple internship offers out of it, and yeah, I really had to find my way, and that was really kind of the start of everything for me. And beat down a lot of doors, made a lot of connections, got a lot of favors, and got really good at taking meetings and got really good about talking about myself, so I could find my way through the doors and get a job. And and
so
here we are.
So internships, because internships are important. Your first internship, How did you get it? I mean, it's going to be different than obviously how people are going to get things today, but I think there is a qualities and characteristics that would help our young people like to know, like, how did you position yourself? Were you talking about yourself? How did you find out? Did you take an unpaid internship? We have people that say, I won't do anything for free. I did, just listener to know, I did so much free work growing up to like get in the door in certain industries. So I'm just saying, like, I was not above that. And
Sorry about
sometimes
my
it
dog.
is, it's
Can you hear
okay.
my
This
dogs?
is it. Yeah, I can. Yeah. They're agreeing with me.
Yeah, they're all about it.
That's what I always say when my dog barks in the background. I'm like, oh, he's just in agreement with what's going on.
There you go.
But I think that, so that was my situation as an intern, is that I like did some work for free. Just there were, even with the college degree, I'm like, okay, no, I can be this kind of temp job for a little bit. So your first jobs getting into the industry, how did you land them? And what do you think made you stand out?
Well, let me be super clear. The thought of being paid for anything then wasn't even in my
I know.
mind. It was like,
I know.
I would have, if I had the money, I would have paid them to let me work for them.
Totally.
To be perfectly honest, I mean, it was not even a question. You weren't getting paid for anything back then, and I was perfectly okay with it because I didn't know otherwise. So I'll skip one step. I was able to get like one, internship early on, 1995 or 94 at Sony Music in a division called Sony Wonder, which was a kids division there, and that one was the one that really led me to the one that's probably the most important internship, because all I wanted to do was walk around the building when I had that first internship and just meet people. And I wasn't even hanging out where I was supposed to be half the time. I was supposed to be in one area, but Michael Jackson had a record label, in that building. I just wanted to go over there and see who the artists were that his record label was signing. I was meeting all these people, and a woman that was there ended up leaving and getting a job at a company called Mandalay Entertainment that at the time was or still is owned by Peter Guber, who today is not just one of the great movie producers of all time, but also owns the Golden State Warriors and the Dodgers, and is involved with LAFC as well, and is just an incredible human being. But so this woman went over there to work, and I knew she was there, and I knew her a little bit from that first internship, but I just called her, and she took my call because she remembered me, and I asked if there's any way that she could help me get an internship over there. And she basically she called me back a little while later, and she really downplayed it. She's like, look, I can get you in here, but it's going to be super administrative, and I think all you're going to be doing is making Xerox copies all day and delivering things to people's offices and whatever. I was like, done, let me come. And the job happened to be on the Sony Pictures lot, which was the former MGM lot back in the days, which was literally where Wizard of Oz was shot. And I mean, I get goosebumps actually talking about it right now, because I remember the feeling of getting to walk on a movie studio lot every day for work. And if that was it, if that was the extent of my day, like that would have been enough. I remember getting to see like sound stages and actors walking all around, and craft services, which is, they serve the food, and these unbelievably extravagant looking lunches with like steak and lobster. And then you would go in and you see like, characters from Star Trek walking around. And it was the greatest 200-yard walk from where I would park in the parking garage to where my actual building was where I worked, that like, it was incredible. And it's true, the job was administrative, but I was going to make whatever I had to make out of it. Like sometimes I would be locked in a room making Xerox copies all day, no windows, just taking in fumes of Xerox machines, whatever. This was before they had PDFs where you could just send something. Back then you had to make copies. And then they would give me things to shred, like paper shredders. And so I figured, well, if they're giving me something to shred, this must be super important stuff. So I would just read it before I shredded it. And then I would get an education. I would be learning about things. I would have to deliver packages to people, and sometimes they were sealed, and I would go in and open them to see what was inside. And like, I was like, look, if I'm going to work for free, I'm getting whatever I can get out of this. That was my one thing. You don't want to pay me, I'm going to get paid, in my head. And that was it. And so it was really about turning, nothing into something. that's really what it was. And by the end of that summer, not only did I get to work for a man by the name of Todd Black, who today, produces unbelievable movies. He produced all the Denzel Washington movies, just did the Equalizer 3 that just came out. Unbelievable mentor of mine. He would let me come in the afternoon. His assistant was pregnant, and she was leaving for like pregnancy class, Lamaze classes in the afternoon. So I would get to work for him and just sit on his phones all day and listen to him talk to people, actors and agents. And then by the end, I got to work for Peter Guber himself and answer his phones, some days. And I remember he was moving in a new office, and I got to move all of his, I had to put all of his like memorabilia onto the shelves. And that in itself was like a historical lesson. He had scripts to some of my favorite movies and Golden Globes and Emmys, all kinds of stuff. And it was like getting to be in the circus for me. It was so cool. And I knew at that time, I'm here to stay, whatever I have to do. And that was it. Just, it was an incredible experience, but it was all about, the job can be the job description, but you can turn it into a lot more.
It's so, I don't really think about this chapter of my life because in my 20s, I did work in TV and film, and I don't think about that era that much because of what I do today. But when you're saying that, I remember getting a job at the Imagine offices, and I was sorting through all the Beautiful Mind scripts and versions, and I had to file things. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing that I get to look at these scripts and these different versions. And I really loved it. I really was just would take in like any opportunity. And I remember at Artists and Entertainment, I was a temp there, and my job was this is so silly now because nobody would ever do this, was to update the President of Artisans database. And I had to type in the things on like cards into the computer. And it was considered like such boring work, but I was like, I'm going to be the best at this. I'm going to be the best at this. And they moved me to like then a phone area where I got to answer phones. And then I did such a great job at answering phones that then they moved me somewhere else. And I think it's so important for our listeners to know that like those jobs, don't turn your nose up at those kinds of things. Like for me, that was the only way into the industry. Like Brad, I didn't have anybody I didn't have people to call. Like my parents, that's not the work that they did. So they couldn't just call somebody up and say like, hey, can she come be a PA? Can she come do this? I had to be willing to, I think it's humble to do that. But I also think it's important because from going to like meeting people, I remember like one of my jobs on the show Dinner for Five, it was Jon Favreau hosted it, and like these celebrities would come to dinner and we would film it. My job was literally to meet the car when they pulled up to the place, to go outside and be like, welcome to Dinner for Five, and walk them to their trailer and ask if they wanted something to drink. And I just remember thinking like, I'm going to do such a good job at that they're going to be like, she's so good at that. Maybe they'll let me go do something else.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, Brad, if we could interview the people that worked with you or that you worked for back then, how would they describe you? Like what words would they describe you as that hungry intern, working for free? What were the words that they would use to describe you?
That has never been asked of me before. I would hope that they would, I can't tell you exactly what they would say, because I don't know, but I would hope that they would say things like, there was never a doubt in my mind that he was going to be okay, that he was going to make it. Because I know I was super curious, and I know I outworked people all over the place. I was the first intern there. I remember getting to sign at Mandalay, like they had an archives book, and I got to sign it literally as their first intern. And then a couple more showed up, and I was just like respectful competition. Like, I'm going to leave here, the most important intern by the end of this summer. And, and that's just the way it's going to be. Like, I think that they would just think that I was really focused, that I was polite, that I was a good listener, that, like I said, I was really curious and without being annoying. And that they had a hunch that I was going to make it one day, and be somewhat successful. That was it. I had so many stories similar to yours that were so outrageous during that time. I mean, I remember one day they needed me work reception also. The receptionist was gone, and I'm sitting there, and some guy comes in for a meeting. He's standing around. He goes, "Hey kid, what's the best movie you've seen this summer?" And I had just seen Crimson Tide, another amazing movie, Denzel Washington, by the way. Like 2 nights before, I'm like, oh God, I just saw this movie, Crimson Tide. And he goes, oh yeah? He's like, I wrote it. And his name was Michael Schiffer. And he was the one who wrote that movie. And then like 2 hours later, Chaz Palminteri walks in right after the movie The Bronx Tale opened. You want to go write another one down? You want to go see a great movie? Go watch The Bronx. And he comes in like a mafia don himself. And there goes Chaz Palminteri. It was just insane. And you just never know where you're going to be. And then, like you said, greeting people at the car. There's only one reason I even am where I am right now, is because one night when I had like my first kind of real assistant job, I was working at a company called Industry Entertainment. And one of the like senior managers there needed a ride home because she lived in the same part of town as me. And we didn't really know each other, but she was super important. Her name was Julie Yorn. To this day, she's a great movie producer, and she needed a ride home. And she was really cool. And she's asking me about myself. Where'd you go to college? What'd you do? I gave her the baseball story that I thought I was going to play baseball forever. And she goes, oh, really? You're a baseball player? She's like, my husband, Kevin Yorn, he has a softball team and you should be on it. And Kevin Yorn was like really well-known entertainment attorney, had an amazing business. And I was like, that would be so cool. And so the next day I get a call from Kevin Yorn asking me to come and play on his softball team. And on that team were all these people who were in the business and great. And I was the young guy, and I would come in and I was pretty good. I was hitting bombs every at bat, and that was cool. And I guess because I was a good baseball player, Kevin tells his brother, Rick Yorn, who to this day is easily, I think, the most important, the most powerful manager in the movie business, need an assistant for the new company he was starting. And I get a call that Rick would like for you to come and work for him at the new company called AMG with Michael Ovitz. And it all came back to baseball. And so I tell that story just to say, you just never know. You don't know if you're going to walk out the door today and trip over somebody that's going to be the key to your future. And it just, if you keep your head up and you stay positive, your eyes wide open, and show patience, which is the most important thing that I could preach, because it takes a really long time no matter what, then I think that there's a really great chance of all the things that you want to come your way. But it all goes back to baseball. I mean,
it's also preparation, the preparation meeting opportunity, right? I mean, you were prepared, you could play softball, like you could go do that softball game because of the experience in baseball. Also, positive attitude, never underestimate it, because I was so friendly and smiley at that reception desk at Artisan that other people behind the scenes, like that had higher positions, requested me when their assistant went out on vacation, because they're like, I want that girl. They didn't know my name. I want the girl at the reception desk. And so then that got me, one of my first really great jobs with Gwen Bethel Riley. She's just amazing in the music industry. And she did exactly what you were talking about. She let me get on the phone and like listen to the calls. It's how I learned how contracts happened, how songs got into movies. And that I look at that now, and she was so gracious to give me that, because that's how you learn. And I didn't take it for granted. I remember staying late because I didn't understand certain things. Like I just was like saying, yeah, oh yeah, I got it. And then this great woman, Kara Hobbs, she would stay after with me and she'd help me understand how things worked. But I loved that I had a boss like that, that gave me a chance, and I didn't want to squander it. I was like, don't fuck it up, because like, this is a big deal to be able to be on the phone and do that. And I did sometimes mess up, and she was a straight shooter, and she told me when I did. And I remember one time I started crying, and because I messed up in her office, and I started crying, and she's like, you can come back when you can have a conversation. And I kind of love it. I kind of loved it, because then when I became a boss, I was like, totally. Like, why am I comforting you when you've messed up? Like, what's going on?
It's so true.
I don't know if you can do that anymore in the workforce, but I got to tell you, listener, that really was like the kick in the butt that I needed to be like, wait a second, like, it's not my boss's job to do that. Like, she's allowed to tell me that I messed up and to do better, and then I get to go do better. That's what you do.
I think that there's a couple of great, points in there about preparation. My high school coach, unbelievable mentor of mine, his name was Frank Cruz, had this line about failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And he used to tell us all the time, like, you have to get your uniform ready the night, before the game before you go to sleep. Put out your uniform, get your socks, get your cleats, make sure your gloves ready, get your belts, you don't forget anything. And that way you don't have to think about it on game day. And so to me, like every day's game day now. I still lay out my clothes every night before I go to bed, every night. So I don't have to think about it the next day and I can just go. And when you're talking about good people in the business, I think that you will have people that will help you and you'll have people that will hurt you. And I think it's important to have both. You have to experience both. And the odds are you're gonna have a lot more people that will help you than hurt you. But you have to expect that, because I think now it's very easy. I see it a lot where something goes the wrong way for somebody. It's like it's like a shot to the jaw. They were never ready, never expecting. How could you? And that's just the way life is, and you need to be ready for all of that. But more looking at for the people who help you. And then, the huge thing is being able to advocate for yourself. I just think the world's gotten so fast and there's so much going on. It's very rare that someone's going to come and point to you and go, you're up. Now's your time. Ready? We're going to give you this. Here's the job. Here's the promotion. Here's the raise. Here's this. The company's yours now. It happens, but you got to make sure people know what you're doing, what you're capable of, and what your talents are, humbly. And I think that's a really, really important thing as well.
Yeah, I think let's talk about that for a minute, because we have people that are trying to figure out how to make the ask, how to advocate. My thought would be make sure that before you walk into that room, that your actions have shown that you are deserving of what you're about to ask for. Because sometimes people walk into my office asking for things that feel like a big leap based on the performance that they've been doing or the actions that they've taken. So my first thing for anybody about to go make an ask is to make sure that your actions up until that point back up the ask that you're about to make and the advocating that you're about to do for yourself. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting now, and I get to meet with young people and interview people all the time that are either coming out of college, looking for their first job, or getting ready to make a move out of maybe what was their first job, or even like early days college, and they'll ask me questions about my company, about what we stand for and what the work-life balance is like, which is so interesting. It's something you really have to take into consideration and think about, because that's what's important to young people these days. And I get that. That being said, I also think it's equally important for us to find out about you and, what's important to you and what drives you and what, even if you've never had a job before, why you have to have this job. All I look for is it's never about how fast somebody can like type an email for me or how amazing they are on the phones in terms of making phone calls for me, anything like that. It's how bad they can demonstrate that they want to come and work at this company and be at WME above any other place in the world. Like, show it to me as badly as you want to breathe, that you want to be here. And then it would be really cool. And then that kind of trickles down to that they would actually want to work, like if they're working directly for me. But usually, if you can demonstrate the knowledge about the place before you get there, what it is we actually do, who are the clients that we represent, where's our other offices around the world, what are the other companies that we own, like you actually took the time to find out where you might be going to work. I can't tell you what a gigantic advantage you're giving yourself. It is, you are literally, it's like pressing turbo boost on your back and you are blowing by others, because your competition of thousands, a lot of them aren't doing that. So
okay, that is so major, Brad, because I don't know what happened. That's like, I don't know why people shifted to being so me focused, but they're like, why would I want to work here? Why would I? And that's like, there's been some, I don't know what year it shifted, because when I was interviewing back in the day, and what I expect when someone's coming and talking to me is like, you're up to date on what I've read. Like when people want me to help them, and then I get on the phone with them, and then they'll say, so tell me what's the latest with WIT, or tell me what you've been writing about lately for Forbes. I'm like, well, what have you read? Like, what's the last article that you read? Or what's the last, like, I'm like, that's so lazy. Like, I got to tell you what we're doing. Like, there's plenty of stuff out there for you to go figure out what we're doing. Then come to the table with something that shows me that you've done some research. And friends, listeners, it takes like 5 minutes. Sometimes you can literally like just get like some talking points of what's really going on with the company, find some cool fact. And then when you show up to the interview, you'd at least look like you've tried to do some research on the place that you want to eventually hire you and support you, give you a salary. Like the least you can do is research what they're doing. So that's great advice, Brad.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think I like the other side of that I started with, where I like
Sure.
that you care about what my company stands for, and you want to know, and that you really want to believe in the kind of heart and soul of the place that you're going to be employed at. I think that that's really cool, to be perfectly honest. I think it's awesome. Then there's the other side too, and what your makeup is as a person, and who you hang out with, and what's your family like, and what charities are you involved with, and who are your best friends, and all of that kind of stuff, because that can tell us a lot as well.
Okay, so those are some good tips for those of the people that are going out there to interview and advocate for yourself. Do your research before you get there. Gosh, I'm trying not to be conscious of time because I have so many. I don't usually like make notes before I do an interview, but there were so many different things that I wanted to touch on.
Take your time.
Okay, I'm assuming that that the qualities when I asked that question a little while back about the words that people would use to describe you when you were starting out, I'm wondering if those are also the things that you look for in people today when they are interviewing for, to work with you, or even when you think about people that you're going to represent and work on behalf of. Are they similar? What you look for in other people is what people probably saw in you. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that overall the answer is yes. I don't know that I look for it, actually. I'm not but I think it just energetically happens. I think the people that I've been fortunate enough to work with in my life, in my career, and particularly like the later stages of my career, when you get to be a little bit more, you get to choose a little bit more about who your clients are. When you first start out, it's like, you're representing this person now, congrats, and you got this person, you got this person. But when you start to shape your business, then you just start attracting people with similar work ethic and certain similar states of mind, and just similar emotions that you have. So I do think that what's super important is that the people I represent can respond to my kind of energy. And I'm so known for picking up the phone and like giving such like a locker room speech, and that might not be for everybody. And so I try to be super positive, and I want to be around positive people. And so if I'm positive, you have to be able to respond to positive energy and not take it like he's just being positive again, and like, you know what I mean. So I just think that you start to attract a certain type, and it's not for everybody. But I would say that a lot of the people that I represent are, maybe all the people I represent, are somewhere close to at least my kind of sensibility and passion, because otherwise it probably wouldn't work.
You've got a style, and you want to find like-minded people.
Yeah, people that can just respond to it,
I mean, I'm sure for on the outside, and especially the young people or older people that are listening, would be like, oh gosh, he's like, his life just seems like so perfect. Like he's made it. He's so successful. And those things are very true. And I know, just because I know I'm a human being, that along the way you've had setbacks and you've made mistakes, or you've had moments that you could really beat yourself up over, because that's just the human condition that we have that. And I know that our people that listen to this show, they deal with those kind of setbacks, especially our really young entrepreneurs, our 14, 15, 16-year-olds that are putting themselves out there and getting rejected, putting themselves out there, getting shot down, or they made a mistake and they think, oh my God, I like messed up the name of the person in the email, and now I'm never going to have another shot with that person. Like these kiddos, they're hard on themselves as they're trying to go out there and make it for themselves and WIT. But I'm wondering what advice you have, or what behaviors you've taken on as to navigate life, to navigate the setbacks, to maybe not beat yourself up so much if you do make a mistake? How do you bounce back? I'd love for you to give some of those tips and guidance to our listener.
Yeah, and I'm so happy you asked, because that's real. I promise you, my life is not perfect like that, and I have had so many setbacks, and I've had my heart broken in this business. I have been fired in this business by somebody I looked up to the most, and thought that I was probably going to work for forever. It wasn't his fault, but it happens because sometimes things don't work out, and and it is so hard, and it never stops, and you never get out of the woods from that. And you can have so many peaks, but to have a peak, you have to have a valley. And that's just life. And there are going to be amazing times, and there are going to be excruciatingly hard times that sometimes you don't even know if you're going to be able to pick yourself up and dust yourself up and, get back into the ring. But you have to mentally know that you can and you will. And I just think that for sure, every single one of those times that I've gone through, I wouldn't give it, well, I wish I hadn't, but I really wouldn't give it back for anything, because it's preparing you for the next big obstacle that you succeed in. It's not preparing you for the next time you have hard times. It's giving you the armor so that when you get into the next big battle for something great, you're ready to win it. What happens that nobody ever prepared me for, and I think you and I talked about this maybe when we first met, is that, and I don't know why, maybe I wasn't even supposed to be prepared for it, maybe I should have just known, but I didn't, is that as you become more successful, it does not get easier. The stakes get extraordinarily higher. I actually thought that once you start going and you finally start to make a little bit of money and you can finally pay your cable bill, none of you even have cable probably, but you can pay your, credit card bill or whatever.
Your Netflix and your Hulu.
Yeah, exactly. That then you can breathe a little bit. And that's actually not true. The stakes get higher in business. People start looking at you for other things. They expect more from you. They demand more from you. Only one person can maybe have what you're actually out there trying to give. And that might leave 5 or 6 other people or other companies upset because they didn't get it. And that energy comes back and that pressure comes back. And if I could give you any bit of advice, and hopefully there's been a couple things today that you can pull out of this, it's that, because so many of you are going to go out there and be successful and have great things happen to you. But the minute something, hits you in the face, it's really important to know that that's part of the game and not something that, is like, how can that happen to me? Oh my gosh, I don't even know what to do. And I've been there. And you have to train yourself out of that. And it will always be part of the case.
Any tangible things that you do? Is there a workout thing that you do? Is there a way that is there meditation? Are there things that you do that maybe our young people could explore themselves to be like, okay, that would help build that armor, or that will help me rebound faster? I know for me, I've gotten a lot better. I used to ruminate a lot more on when I would mess up. I'd really be hard on myself and beat myself up over things. And then I started doing something which some people think is woo-woo, but has worked for me. I do something called tapping, EFT. That's helped me. I do meditation. I love to go for a long walk sometimes. There's just things that are not work related, responses to having a work crisis or a disappointment or a failure. So and for our young people, it could be something happening at school that's bringing them down, or a rejection of some kind. Do you have anything that helps you?
Oh, boy, did you ask the wrong question? This is going to be a long answer, because the answer is yes. I'm 40. I just turned 49 last month. I've never worked harder just on myself, in health and wellness and just overall mental health, which I think everybody has challenges, with these days. I don't care how old you are. I happen to know that for a fact. Hopefully all of your listeners are like, yep, absolutely true. So yeah, I reach out for so much help. I have I guess I would call him a leadership coach, a guy by the name of Jesse Israel, who is just unbelievable to me, and I've worked with now for, probably, I don't know, probably getting closer to a year, who just helps me with day to day everything, in my business, and really be able to talk about challenges and things and wins and losses and all that type of stuff. There's a whole meditation component that goes along with that, which I'm trying to get better at, and he knows it. I have found things like cold plunging that anybody can do, even if you have a cold shower. But I did it this morning before I did this, which is probably the biggest game changer in my overall day. I get in water that's like 47, 48 degrees for 3 to 6 minutes at a time, depending on how I feel, that you absolutely never, ever get used to, ever. But I feel like if I do that, if I accomplish that first thing in the morning, there's not a lot of other things in my day that can be more challenging to have to get through than that. And I can tell you, it is physically impossible, I think, to be in a bad mood when you come out of freezing cold water for a million physiological, actually scientific reasons. So it's just unbelievable energetically and mentally, and opens up the mind and really calms things down, which is awesome. I've been doing jujitsu, like I mentioned earlier, for probably closer to 10 years now. And even when I take a little bit of a break from actually physically being there, which I am taking a break kind of right now, although I'm just about to go back, it's still on my mind every single day, because like I said, a huge part of that is about focusing on trying to remain comfortable when you're uncomfortable. So in jiu-jitsu, you can have somebody laying on top of you, smothering you, who weighs even more than you. And you might think, as I'm describing it, there's how uncomfortable that would be. And now there's almost no way out of it, depending on how you're being grabbed, maybe around the neck. But the truth of the matter is, at some point, most likely that person is going to make some kind of move that's going to free up just a little bit of space somewhere that you can then find your way out of that situation safely. And that's the metaphor to life, right? Where no matter how tough things seem like they can be, somewhere there's going to be a ray of light somewhere that's going to open up. And once you see that daylight, you're going to find your way, out that door. And then you see that everything else starts to open up, and you can start to, breathe normally again. And so even if I'm not there in jiu-jitsu, I'm watching videos, I'm thinking about the Gracie brothers and people who have taught me along the way, and the lessons they've taught me. So all of those things I try to put into my days, because without it, I think I would be I don't know where I would be. I need, a lot of help. And then leaning, of course, on real people, staples in your life, like family, my wife, Kara, I've been married to for, 17 years, and my boys and things like that, where it can ground you. And so for you guys, who probably, aren't married and don't have kids yet, just leaning on those people that that you can rely on, and having them there at the end of the day to really focus on things that are truly important.
I think it's so helpful to the people listening that you shared that, because I think people can think that I can say it over and over again on the podcast, or when I meet with young people, that just because somebody looks like they're successful, they can be successful and they still have stuff. Like, it doesn't just go away just because you hit a certain socioeconomic number, or salary number, or your home looks a certain way. And you providing and saying, like, things still happen that are hard, and here are tools that I use, reminds our young person that it's super normal for them to have setbacks right now, and they can get ahead. You all can get a head start on your own self-care toolkit that you can start building, and you can try out some of the things that Brad has shared. And it's okay if you don't have a designated cold plunge in your house. You can you can turn that water in the shower cold for 2 minutes at the end. Yeah, you can download free meditations. There are community centers in your neighborhood that provide workout classes that you can take. So just know that you do have access to things right at the level that you're at right now in your life, and you're worth investing in this way when it comes to your self-care and your mental health. I want to switch gears a little bit, but I want people to know that I don't think this should be switching gears, because everybody who works hard and I know that Brad does, in order to make him an enjoyable human being to be around, is that he's multifaceted, and he has things that he cares about outside of work. And all of you should have things that you care about outside of school that light you up, that give you a sense of purpose, that taps into your gifts and your talents that maybe school doesn't. So Brad, I want to take these like closing minutes to talk about the work that you're doing outside of work in the prisons. Can we talk about that? I'd love to educate our listener on it.
Yeah, thank you for asking. You know, I part of growing up in Los Angeles, I was so fortunate. I went to public schools here and went to a high school called University High School in West Los Angeles. That was super diverse and amazing at that time. It was, it was the early 90s in Los Angeles, which was a really, really unique time. And my school just had every single race, gender, religion, everything you could imagine. And I forged friendships with people of all, different kinds, all different races and everything. And it was amazing. And I think it's a huge part of what made me become, the person I am today, even probably in business. And so with that, a lot of my teammates along the way, we were a real melting pot and coming from different parts of the city and different backgrounds. And two of my dear friends that I grew up really with, since I was like 10 years old, playing Little League Baseball with, and the other one I met closer to probably 7th grade, but we all played baseball together all the way through high school. Unfortunately, ended up getting on the wrong side of the law, and they were amazing, amazing kids and the biggest smiles and so funny and such good guys. But unfortunately, as sometimes happens, some of the situations in life, grab you too tight and you can't get away from it. And they, were involved with gangs. And unfortunately, they committed a crime that put them in jail. They went away, I think, in 1996, and they're still in prison to this day. And from the moment they went away, there definitely hasn't been a week that's gone by where I don't think about them both and what life must be like for them living inside of prisons, and for their families who are outside of prisons, and just and being them there they've been in prison now longer inside than they were ever alive outside, which is really wild to think about. And so sporadically throughout, I would get a phone call here and there from them, but it wasn't enough. And luckily, my story was told to a guy by the name of Scott Budnick, who's a movie producer, produced movies like The Hangover, for those of you who have seen that, who's an unbelievable human being who had started an organization called ARC. And Scott and I had known each other for years in the business, but he never knew that, my story about my friends. And so he called me one day and said, I have someone who wants to talk to you. And I was like, really? This was like, I think, early pandemic. And he put me on the phone, and he put me on the phone with my friend Tony, who I hadn't talked to for many, many, many years. And it was just unbelievable to get a chance to speak to him, and just rehash life. And then 2 days later, he called me, same thing, with my other friend Miguel, and got a chance to speak to him and talk about everything that's gone on with me and him, and then it's turned into us speaking all the time. I get to talk to them all the time and communicate with them. But Scott started this organization called ARC, which focuses on helping people that are incarcerated to prepare them for life inside, and then hopefully when they're able to come home, when they get released. And then what also really helps people who are released and re-assimilating into life, because for friends, people like my friends, when they went in, they never touched a cell phone in their life. They've never used a computer, never balanced a checkbook, never been to a Target, a lot of nevers, and have to reacclimate into society and learn how to drive cars and just how to live and deal with family again and all those type of things. So Scott asked me to join the board of ARC, a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago now. And then that led me to become the chairman of the board over the course of the last year. And it's just an incredible organization that really is doing things for people who are trying to really get a second chance at life. And listen, there are a lot of people who have done a lot of bad things in their lives who deserve to be in prison and maybe, never ever leave a prison. But there are also a lot of people in prison that have been there for an awfully long time who probably do deserve the chance if they're ready to be able to reacclimate and come back, to society and live again. And so that's where we're focused. And we do tons of prison visits. And I know, Sarah, you've been asking me for so long to come on one. And I promise you, I'm going to take you up on that and get to meet, people who live their lives inside behind bars. And it's just an incredible organization that does some really, really special things. And every time I'm around the people that work at ARC, I'm just kind of blown away by the commitment that they have to people and trying to help people who really don't have a lot of hope. There's no guarantee that you're ever going to come out for some of them. And we're talking about people who like my friends have been in for 27 years. I've met people who've been in for 40, 45 years, 50 years, who have had to come home, who have come home or will end up, spending the rest of their lives behind bars. So it's extremely gratifying to be a part of. It's a huge honor for me to get to be the chairman of that board and watch and try to help the people that work at ARC to do their jobs every day.
Tell me, as somebody who has such a full calendar, right? I know how your day is. Why do you make time for this? Like, why is this something that you prioritize in your life?
Well, because the real answer is I had a tremendous amount of guilt for so long, for my friends. They committed a crime and they would be the first to tell you what they did was awful, was terrible, but I spend years of my life with them outside, and some of the happiest moments, I've ever had, playing sports and sleeping at each other's houses and having them come to my house or me going to their house and their mom, cooking, the greatest food for us and vice versa and all those things. And then they get sent away. And I guess it's easy to be like, okay, well, they're in jail now. But also it's like, I think that there's a part of me that owes them to not break that bond, especially seeing the remorse that they feel for the things that they've done and how much they've learned and how much, people can actually change with tremendous hard work. You don't just wake up one day and go, okay, I'm ready to apologize, for everything. It doesn't work like that. So that's why I make the time for it, because I had so much, there were a lot of years there where it's like, I could have done more. I could have driven up, tried to go visit. I could have tried to write the letter. I could have made the phone call. I could have done all these things, which they never would ever in a million years ask me, where were you? Ever. Every time you get on the phone with them, they're so grateful. But that's why I make the time. And I also know that there's times that they'll try to reach me. My cell phone could ring while I'm on the phone here with you and I can't take the call, and I miss a lot of phone calls. And so that's also why I try to make the time, because you multiply that by all the members that we have at ARC, there's a lot of connections. And sometimes it's just a conversation that can get somebody through a day. So
I think I want everyone to find the thing, right? All of our young people to find the thing, or even our older listeners and whoever's making the time to hang out with us today, that you can look at your day and think you're just like so busy and there's like not enough time. But I think wonderful things happen when we make the choice to be of service, for sure. That's a big part of WIT, is to make the time in your life to be of service to others. And it doesn't matter what that thing is. So, Brad and I have had offline conversations about the layers of the work that he does. And I really encourage all of you to look at the organization, because they do some really interesting work around, Brad, what would be the right name for it when you talk about them actually getting a chance to talk to the people the families that they impacted? I feel like you've told me that they have.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's all part of justice reform, but I think,
okay.
Yeah, it all goes under justice reform. And yes, listen, victims' families are a really important thing too, because you have to remember there's, as hard as these people are working on themselves to be better, there's an unbelievable other family with a mother and or sister and brother or husband, wife, daughter, son that was affected by some of these, crimes. And so that has to be taken into consideration. So I think that's what you're referring to.
And that you all do at ARC do a really good job in that space too. So
working on it, probably need to get better there, but it's definitely becoming a focus, and something we talk about a lot, because it's a really important way to be 360, I think.
Mhm. So friends, check it out. Where can they find more information about the organization?
It's Anti-Recidivism Coalition that's what ARC stands for. There's an Instagram that's fabulous. It's constantly posting things. We have a website as well. So I think it's anti-recidivismcoalition.com, and the Instagram is Anti-Recidivism Coalition, or at that. So
you all can find that. I'm not going to spell that for you.
It's hard. I have a tough time spelling it every time I write it.
Me too. I'm like, I have a hard time
3
spelling
words:
entrepreneur.
Anti-Recidivism Coalition.
Yeah. Well, Brad, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thank you.
And for
awesome. You're the best.
For sharing your story, and I just want to publicly thank you for also talking with me the day that I met you, because you made time to sit down and chat with me and have a real conversation. And I really appreciated that. And my offer still stands, on what I offered on that day is to use my different platforms to share the work that you do and that the people that you work with do. And I just appreciate your time so much. So final words for our listener today. You go.
Final words are, well, first of all, thank you all for listening. I hope my long answers didn't bore you. Just stay patient, stay happy, surround yourself with good people the best you can, surround yourself with positivity, even though it's not easy to always be positive, and and just keep fighting every day. Go be great.
All right, everybody, you know the drill. We'd love to hear what you got out of this, because I know that you got stuff out of it. So you can comment with that information. You can share this on your different social media channels and tag us and tell us what parts that you enjoyed, and subscribe, share all of the things. And the commotion that you're hearing in the background are the dogs celebrating the final words that Brad shared with us today. So they are also in agreement that is what you should all go off and do. So keep doing WIT, everybody, and